Hello, and welcome to another episode of the DVD Graveyard, where we talk pretty much all horror all the time. Um, another Halloween, sorry, another holiday is upon us, and if you know me, you know I like a good holiday horror film, especially a good old-fashioned slasher movie. I talked about that briefly in my Heart Eyes, my first impressions of Heart Eyes video, and there's not really a lot of, as I said in that video, there's not a lot of uh, horror Valentine's Day horror films, but this one is definitely the quintessential Valentine's Day horror film, and it's the one that I watch every year. And I think it's fairly well known. At this point, I think a lot of people are very aware of what's going on. With this movie and everything. And of course, there's been a remake, and I think there's actually even talks of another remake. From Blumhouse, if I'm not mistaken. I read that somewhere, and so it's definitely, like I said, it's gotten around. It's a lot more well known than when I found out about it. And but of course, the movie that we're going to be talking about today is My Bloody Valentine from 1981. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I hope you enjoy this video. Or review, I guess I should say. They're not videos anymore, so forgive me if I say that quite a bit. So I have the DVD right here. I'm just going to read a brief the plot synopsis off the back. So 20 years after a Valentine's Day tragedy, a small town prepares for its annual holiday dance. When a box of candy arrives containing an eerie warning and a blood-soaked heart, the townsfolk realize that this Valentine's Day romance is as good as dead, and so are they. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. This one that I have in particular is the special edition, and it actually has all of the uncut footage, and all of the deleted scenes are added in. And I'm really glad that they did, because there's a lot of stuff that's cut out of this movie that looks really great, and it really makes the movie. I hate that they cut out as much as they did, but a lot of the kills. And I watch the extended version every time, so I don't really remember, the regular version. But a lot of the kills are, a little bit more graphic. You get some more of it, which is really nice. You get a lot more of the special effects work, actually on screen. And in this version that I have, you can really tell when it's the deleted footage, because whenever it cuts in, it's in this really grainy, rough looking cut, and I don't mind, because it I can tell when it's a cut scene, and I really like that. There is a Blu-ray and there's a 4K. I don't know if those look any better, if those have been updated. I heard that the Silent Night, Deadly Night 4K, it's, because you can really only get it so clear. And that's really why I don't really buy into the 4Ks. Because, there comes a certain point where these movies, these old movies like this, they can really only be so clear, you know what I mean? And there's a point where it starts to kind of take away from the charm of the movie to me. So that's why I'm not really, I'll buy 4Ks if I can find one cheap, but I'm not going to go and redo my entire collection that I've been collecting, almost 20 years now on 4K. Maybe I'll get some other things, I'll transfer some things to Blu-ray, but I'm not gonna delve deeply into 4K, because it's kind of ridiculous and it's very overpriced, and I don't care that much. But I do love this movie, and this DVD version I have of it looks perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the one I've had for years, and kind of my personal backstory with this movie, I'll talk about briefly. When the remake came out, My Bloody Valentine 3D, I remember hearing about it, and it was a long time ago. I think it was like 2010-ish, give or take, if I'm not mistaken. Or give or take a few years, maybe 2013, but I don't think so. I think it was earlier than that. Maybe we'll talk about that one day, or do a remake or rewind and compare the two of them, because it's actually a decent remake. I don't have any problems with it, really, that I remember off the top of my head. But I haven't watched it in so long. But this one I absolutely watch every year. But ever since, I got it, and I remember, I heard about the original one, the remake coming out, and that was in the big boom of remakes that was going on in the, early 2000s, early to late 2000s, when everything was being remade. And so I was kind of just over it at the time. I was like, oh, great, there's another remake. I had never seen the original My Bloody Valentine. I didn't know about it. And this is actually what brought it to my attention. So, but I didn't care to really watch My Bloody Valentine 3D. I just wanted to watch the original once, I found out it was a remake. So I found a copy of it. It's the same copy I have right here sitting on my desk in front of me, and I found it at Hastings whenever they were still open, and I bought it and I took it home, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, this film is amazing, and it's been on my definitely on the Valentine's list for years now, ever since I first saw it. And it's really, and it is a slasher. It is a holiday slasher, but it's got a lot more going on in it, as far as plot is concerned, and characters, and just there's a lot of stuff happening in this movie. And that's not just, it's not just another Friday the 13th sequel, where we get a bunch of cannon fodder of teenagers being murdered by Jason Voorhees. It's not really like that, even though it's, shortly after Friday the 13th, the first two, and then I think The Burning came out the same year, 1981, if I'm not mistaken. And, but it still fits in that pocket, and it really feels like one of those movies. Like, I think a really great triple feature, if you feel like watching, some early 80s slashers, put on Friday the 13th Part 2, The Burning, and My Bloody Valentine, and they all have this kind of what's the word for it, cohesiveness in a way. I guess it's just because they are early 80s slashers, but this movie really stands out to me, amongst all of those, especially, like I said, with Friday the 13th and stuff. The Burning did too, and we'll talk about that one again. I covered it, before on this channel. So anyway, like I said, My Bloody Valentine, it came out in 1981. It was directed by George Mihalka. I might have mispronounced that. You guys know I'm not good at pronouncing names. It was released on February the 11th, 1981 in the United States, and it wasn't released till actually February the 13th, 1981 in Canada, which I don't know if that was a Friday the 13th or not, because we actually get a Friday the 13th in this movie, funny enough. I'll talk about that here in a minute. So yeah, it's and it was a modest, but it had a pretty good sized budget. It was about 2 million is what they spent making it, was the budget, and they brought back almost 6 million. I think it was 5.7 million is what it made, and it was filmed in Canada with a lot of Canadian actors. And the director, he is Hungarian and Canadian, if I'm not mistaken. I may have that wrong, but I'm pretty sure he is Hungarian as well as, I know he's definitely Canadian, but I think he's Hungarian splashed in there as well. I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. This movie actually has a really big cast compared to a lot of like I said, a lot of other horror movies, and everybody kind of gets equal screen time in a way. Like, there's not just one main person we're focusing on. I mean, we're kind of focusing on three, is kind of the main plot point. Three of these characters, Axel, TJ, and Sarah. But everyone really seems important in this movie. And I really like that, because like I said, they're not just there just to die. Like, everyone you kind of grow a relationship with, or you see them, how their relationships work with each other, and you really grow to care about some of them, and some of them not so much. But yeah, so the cast, just to name a few, we get Paul Kellman, who plays T.J. Hanniger. We get Laurie Hollier, who plays Sarah Mercer. Neil Affleck plays Alex Palmer, which Neil Affleck's actually done a lot of stuff. No relation to Ben Affleck, as far as I'm aware. We get Cynthia Dale as Patty, Keith Knight as Hollis, who is Patty's boyfriend, Don Franks, who plays Jake Newby, the sheriff, Al Humphreys, who plays Howard Landers. We get Patricia Hamilton. I almost said Patricia Osborne. I'm bad at this. Patricia Hamilton, who plays Mabel Osborne. Poor, sweet Mabel. And then we get Larry Reynolds, who plays Mary. God, I'm so bad at this. Mayor Hanniger. And then, I'm sorry, we also get Jack Van Evera as Happy, who is the bartender. So we get there's a lot of people in this movie, and like I said, a lot of them, most of them are fairly important, to the film, which I really like. I could just harp on that, all night long. But so we'll just get into it. So when we start out in this movie, we get this scene in the mine. It opens up in the mine, and we get this miner, and he's going down into the this kind of little side ventilation shaft kind of area with this woman, and he goes down there and he slams his pickaxe into the wall, and they both begin to undress. She's undressing, and he's supposed to follow behind, in suit, and she's kind of stroking the hose on his gas mask and all this other stuff. And so she's getting undressed, and as she takes off her the uniform, the mining uniform, this miner sees that she has a little heart on her chest, and that kind of sends him into a panic mode. And because of the gas mask, we can really hear the it's kind of reminiscent of Darth Vader, kind of a little bit. I guess that's maybe what they were going for. I don't know, but I really like that we hear that kind of breathing. And I guess you could say this is our first really good look at the killer, and he's just wearing this mining uniform, basically, that is just kind of there with this gas mask and the helmet with the light on it, So he looks really cool. The killer's really badass, and he takes this woman and he shoves her down on the pickaxe, and then the point of the pickaxe ends up coming out of her chest, coming through the heart, and that is the little heart tattoo she has, and that is where we get the title card, My Bloody Valentine, which is a really cool little title card because it's very 80s, but we get the My Bloody, and then bloody is the two hearts are the O's, and then they're dripping blood, and so you get My Bloody Valentine, and that's kind of what opens us up. So then we're still in the mine. We come up on this mine cart, and we get a title card that says Thursday, February the 12th. So, just a few days before Valentine's Day. And that's where we meet Axel, TJ, Hollis, Howard, a lot of the folks that we're going to be spending a lot of time with in this movie. That's where we meet all of them. They're taking a shower, and they're just kind of talking, and that's where we learn, TJ is like, oh, same old, nothing's changed at all. And so one of the guys is like, yeah, of course, I'll bet you wish you hadn't left so that, Axel and Sarah wouldn't have gotten together. So that's really the first hint of the kind of love triangle thing that's going on in this. And like I said, that's really kind of the main plot point in this, is this love triangle, which and it's fine. It's not something that I'd go for in every horror movie or any other movie, really, for that matter. I'm not crazy about the like love drama type stuff, but at the same time, it's really nice to just have some kind of other plot movement going on besides just slasher stalking and killing everyone. So that's really nice that there's some real meat to the plot here, for lack of a better term. So that like I said, they all leave the bar, after they kind of have this shower, and we get the first look of the town at the town Valentine Bluff, or Valentine's Bluffs, or I think Valentine's Bluffs, maybe something like that. I'm going to call it Valentine Bluffs, for the sake of this review. So they all meet up at the place where they're going to have this Valentine's dance, and everyone is decorating, and oh yeah, I forgot to mention they were doing this. They're setting up for a Valentine's Day dance. They're all talking about what a good time they're going to have Saturday night. And so they're all they meet up there, and they're all all the ladies are decorating and everything, and that's when we meet Mabel and Mayor Henniger, and then of course we meet the Sheriff Newby. And so they're all there, and they're talking, and they're talking about how this is going to be so great. This is the first Valentine's Day in 20 years, and so they're all really excited about this, and that's where we really find out that, because of course the mayor is TJ's father, and that's of course as soon as he comes in, TJ decides to leave. He's like, I don't have no part of this, whatever, and so he leaves. And the mayor kind of gives us a little bit of TJ's backstory. He says that TJ had left town. He wanted to do something bigger, and he basically fell on his ass. And now he's back. And of course, Sarah is now his ex-girlfriend. She's now with Axel, who was one of his friends. Big mess. So that's kind of where we find out, what's going on with that. And so they're all just kind of clowning around and joking. And then as they're leaving, Howard, one of the guys, he finds this. There's a box of candy, a heart-shaped box of candy left on the table, and it is addressed to the mayor. So Howard runs out. Howard runs out and he gives it, and he's like, "Oh, maybe you got a secret admirer," And so he gives him that. Of course, Mabel, she leaves. Sweet old Mabel, she leaves, and we get to the truck with the sheriff and the mayor, and they're sitting in the truck, and they're asking, who's it from? Who's the sheriff's asking him who the box is from. And so he decides to open it right there. Of course, he says the only thing I like better than Christmas candy is, Valentine's candy. So he opens it up, and inside of it, there's a note that says, "From the heart comes a warning filled with bloody good cheer. Remember what happened as the 14th draws near." And he lifts the little paper on the inside, and there's a human heart on the inside. And I just thought that was so cool whenever I found out about that. So then once that happens, they kind of the sheriff and the mayor, they turn around and they go to get the heart checked out. And basically this guy is in the I guess I don't know what you would call it. He's a scientist of some kind. But anyway, he confirms that the heart is real. And he's like, gentlemen, we may have a real problem. It looks like, Harry Warden's back in town, and so that's when we kind of go back. Actually, I think this happens right before this. We actually go back to the bar, and we meet the bartender, Happy, and he's in there basically telling the story of Harry Warden. So essentially what happened is 20 years ago, they were going to have a Valentine's dance, and two of the supervisors left to go to the dance, but they forgot to check the methane levels in the mine, and there was a big explosion, and a lot of the miners got trapped. I think it was five of them got trapped, and the sole survivor, Harry Warden, he survived. He went crazy, but he survived by cannibalizing the other miners that he was in there with. And then, of course, once he was free and they escaped the mine, 1 year later on Valentine's Day, he murdered the two supervisors that that had left them. So that's kind of the story, the backstory to Harry Warden, as we get. And, of course, everybody's freaking out because they remember this. And, so we get a name for our killer, as Harry Warden. He's kind of our Jason Voorhees, or Michael Myers or whatever for this, particular plot. And again, he's a really cool killer. He looks really cool. He uses a pickaxe and he wears this gas mask, and you can hear the the kind of the breathing, and it is so cool. I really like kind of the backstory that they get from that. So then we go to outside of the laundromat, where we really get this really cool shot. It shows the outside, and we just see the boots. We see Harry Warden's boots walking up beside the laundromat, and it's really cool. Just it's got some really spooky music going on. It's shot really well, and then we go into a POV where Harry is watching Mabel from the outside of the laundromat. He's staring in the window, and so she leaves the room. And then Harry he walks in and he lays down a box of chocolate. Another heart-shaped box, and then he just dips out of frame. And like I said, that was in POV. Well, so now we're out of the POV, and Mabel comes back into the room, and she sees the box, and sweet old Mabel, you just love her to death, and she was, like I said, a sweet character, or she's such a sweet lady in this movie, and so she comes back in and she sees the box. And of course she's looking around. Oh my goodness, who got this for me? Jack? Could it be you? Or Jake? I'm sorry, Jack. Jake? Could this be from you? The sheriff. And I'm sorry, his name's Jack now. Jack Newby. That actually sounds better, Jack Newby, to me. I don't know. Jake Newby. Jack Newby. I don't know. Yeah, Jack sounds better to me. Anyway, so the box was not from Jake. It was actually from Harry. And so she opens this card on the inside, and it says, "Roses are red, violets are blue, one is dead, and so are you." And then, so that's when the lights go down, lights get cut out, and Mabel is attacked. And Harry's chasing her through this laundromat, and she's running to the back, and as she kind of goes through this doorway, Harry grabs her hair and pulls her back, and then that scene cuts, and that is when we're in the junkyard. And that's where all the guys, Hollis, Howard, all of them, they're outside basically trying to cook something on top of an engine that's going, just like I said, chilling in this junkyard. And they're kind of doing their thing. And, Axel's over, in this car by himself, and he's over there playing the harmonica. And that's when TJ scares him. He kind of sneaks up on him, scares him. They sit down and they talk. They start playing the harmonica together. Like I said, they used to be friends, and TJ sits down and he says, I guess we got ourselves a problem, don't we? And what are we gonna do about it? And Axel basically tells him, he's like, look, you're the one that moved off, you're the one that left. Sarah wants to, she's with me now. You go fuck yourself. Like I said, you were the one that left. You don't need to be all bent out of shape about this. And so Axel leaves. He doesn't want to be, he's like, I'm not backing off for you, TJ. And he leaves. TJ's throwing a fit and he's upset, and Hollis kind of comes over and consoles him and kind of tells him, he's like, I'm sorry, man, but that's kind of the way shit is. It happens. And so we kind of cut from that. And that whole scene in the junkyard I really like, because we get some kind of backstory with the characters. Like TJ talks about how they used to sit around there and get drunk, and they'd drive off to the bluffs, or they'd race out to the bluffs, and tear that place apart and all that. So we really get the feeling that all these characters used to be really close together. And have we even met Sarah? Yes, I'm sorry. We met Sarah at the dance. I forgot to mention her. I don't really like Sarah's character in this. Not really that necessarily. I just think more of like TJ and Axel should just be like, man, bros before hoes. Like, we were such good friends. Screw this. Screw her. We don't need her. We're better off. We're buddies. You know what I mean? There's plenty of fish in the sea. That would have been a smart thing. But no, they continue to argue over the entire movie. But anyway, so we cut to the next day, which happens to be Friday, February the 13th. And that's when the sheriff, Jack Newby, he decides to call this mental institution to see if Harry is still in this mental institution, that he went to after he, killed the two supervisors, on Valentine's Day. And she's like, no, he's simply no longer here. He's either been released, transferred, or he's dead. One of the three, take your pick. And the sheriff's, basically, ma'am, that's not okay. That's not good. I can't, I need more information. And she says, there may be more information, but I'd have to check, the microfilms or something like that. And that's going to take several days. And he's, get back to me as soon as you can. And so he gets off the phone to her, and the mayor and the sheriff, they start to discuss whether or not they should cancel the dance. Because of course that's really what he wants. That's what Harry wants. He wants the dance to be stopped. He doesn't want this happening. So they kind of discuss it. The sheriff goes over to the laundromat to kind of discuss canceling the party with Mabel, because of course this is Mabel's baby. This party is something that she's worked really hard on, and they know that she's really looking forward to it. So he has to kind of go break the news, and of course you can tell he's very upset about it. So he walks in, and of course something's not right, and he sees one of the paper hearts that is out, for decorations. It's upside down on one of the dryers. So he's like, okay, something's off here, and he's looking, around the laundromat, and then he starts to find these upside down hearts on the, on the dryers. And if you look closely, you can clearly see one of the dryers has something inside of it, but I guess the sheriff standing right beside it doesn't see. You can absolutely see blood, on this front load dryer. And about that time, whenever he walks up beside it, Mabel's corpse falls out of the dryer, and she is completely burned and crispy, and her eyes are white. And that's all we see in the regular version. I remember that. But in the uncut version, we go to another, we follow up in this scene, I guess I should say, where she falls out of the dryer, and then her body continues to kind of spin around for a minute. And I think it even falls out, if I'm not mistaken, of this dryer. Of course, the sheriff is freaking out. They call in, the coroner and everything that come to take her away. and they have her on the stretcher, and they're about to take her out, and he's telling them, take her outside, no, or take her out back. Nobody wants to, we don't want to shock everybody. If anybody asks, Mabel Osborne died of a heart attack, and that is it. That is all. And so right as she's about to leave, he notices, or before they're about to cart her off, that's whenever he notices there's a note inside of Mabel's chest, and another little heart shaped note. So he pulls that out, and it reads, "It happened once, it happened twice. Cancel the dance, or it will happen thrice." And then, of course, that's when they're like, "Okay, all bets are off. We are canceling this dance." So they tell him, we want every flyer, every heart, everything Valentine's Day related. Tear it down, take it all down. And so they do. And that you kind of feel bad about that, because you can really tell that everybody in the movie was really enjoying the thought of having this dance, because they haven't done it in so long. And it really, like I said, I like that whole kind of sense of community that this town has. This movie does the small town thing really well. All the characters vibe really well together. The sheriff and the mayor, they're really close. I love their banter back and forth. Everybody, and that's another thing, just to, I guess, to touch on the actors and the actresses. Everyone is doing such a phenomenal job at acting. They're not, Oscar worthy or anything like that, and they're not mind blowing, but they're doing just a fine job. There's a few hit or miss performances in there, but for the most part, everybody is doing great. I think everybody's doing just fine. So, like I said, once they cancel the dance, we go back to the mine, and they're, TJ, Axel, all the guys, they're inside the mine, they're working, and that is when one of them says something really snarky to the other, and like I said, TJ and Axel kind of have this sort of animosity towards each other ever since that conversation the other night at the junkyard, and so they begin to fight. They just, a flat out brawl. It doesn't go too long at all, but they start to fight in the mine, and they get, they break it up, and they tell them to separate. Well, they go through the rest of their workday, and as they come out of the mine, Axel's, Henniger, I've got to have I got a bone to pick with you, and so TJ is just, he's booking out of there. He's like, nope, I'm going. He clocks out, he goes straight to his car, and then that's whenever he goes to pick up Sarah, who earlier in the film we saw her going into a store with Patty, which is Hollis's lady. So he picks her up from there, and they leave, and they drive out to I guess this beach, or it's this really gorgeous spot, and you can see the mine off in the distance, and it's just water, out to nowhere. And he's basically telling her, how he feels, and she's crying and she's upset, and he's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left, but I had to try it, and I went out there and I fell flat on my ass, and I'm coming back here, and I love you, Sarah, I love you. And he kisses her, and that's when he's telling her, basically, please choose me over Axel. And so that's when I guess she does. I don't think we really see the confirmation. They smooch, of course, but that's really kind of what happens from that. She decides that she's going to take TJ back, and of course Axel's not going to be happy about this at all, but he's just going to have to get over it. So then, they're back at the bar. They're talking about how the Valentine's dance has been canceled, and how they're all upset about it, and everybody's bummed out, and of course, TJ and Axel, they're kind of being snarky towards each other, but you can tell TJ's in a good mood now that he's won Sarah over. He's been really mopey this whole movie, but he really kind of picks back up around this time, and that's when we're at the bar, that's when Happy, the bartender, or no, I'm sorry, I apologize, that happened earlier, that they decide to, since they're not doing the dance, they decide to have a party, and everybody's, where are we going to have a party? Newbie's got this town on lockdown, and so they decide to do it at the mine, in the rec room of the mine. They're like, we got a pool table, we got everything that we could possibly need over there, so they decide to do this, and Happy the bartender's telling them, you're fools, you're crazy, you're gonna piss all over the legend of Harry Warden, will you? Well, I'll show those damn kids. So that's when we go to the mine, and we see Happy the bartender, and he is trying to prank I keep wanting to say kids, but they're not kids. I mean, they've all got full-time jobs, but he keeps trying he wants to prank them because they don't take the legend of Harry Warden seriously, and they just want to have this party, and he's telling them to stop, and he knows, Mabel Osborne died of a heart attack, my ass, so he, like I said, he just wants to scare them. So he goes to the mine before them, and he goes to the door of the rec room, and he sets up this dummy. It's a miner suit dummy, with the helmet and everything, and there's a pickaxe in the miner's hand, in the dummy's hand, so that when you open the door, it's attached to a rope, the pickaxe will lift, and he just gets this big kick out of it every time. The first time he sets it up, he laughs his ass off. He's like, oh my god, this is the funniest damn thing ever. And he shuts the door, and then he opens it again to get another kick out of it. And he's like, oh my god. And then he shuts it again, and then he opens it again, and he's laughing. And, it's fucking hilarious. It's the greatest prank ever known to man. So he shuts it, and he walks away. And this is kind of one of the goofiest kills in the entire movie. If not, it probably is the goofiest. It was entirely, unnecessary, just because, like I said, Happy the bartender has opened this door 3 times. He walks away. He knows what's going to be behind the door, but he just gets a kick out of it. So he's like, oh, hell, I'm going to open it again anyway. So he goes back and he opens it. And then in place of this dummy, that is where we get Harry Warden is there. And he flings up with his pickaxe. And like I said, this was the goofiest kill. It was the most unnecessary one, I guess. Just because, again, if he had just left and walked away and didn't have to admire his handiwork again, he probably would have been perfectly fine. But he decides to go back again, I'm sorry. Like I said, goofiest kill, but probably my favorite kill in the movie, besides Mabel in the dryer, especially in the uncut version, because I don't think you see this at all in the theatrical version. So whenever he opens the door, like I said, Harry flings the pickaxe up, and we see it goes up through Happy's chin and out of his eye socket, and his eyeball is sitting on the very end of the tip of this pickaxe. It is so freaking cool. Like I said, favorite kill of the movie. It's so cool. I wish they hadn't cut that out. So after that happens, that's when we go to February the 14th, Saturday, February 14th, and we see the town, there's, flyers, Valentine's Day flyers floating in the wind, and it looks, it kind of looks like like a Valentine's Day wasteland, because everything is just, just trash. It's all thrown to the side. And so we get all the guys, the guys and gals, they go to the rec room of the mine, and that's when they just start to party, that evening. They just go crazy. And so back at after that happens, we go back to the sheriff's station, and this is another really cool scene too. I like how they did this, and I love that they brought all of the Valentine's Day things into this movie. Like I said, the box of chocolates, the letters, things like that. And I like that the killer is wearing a mining costume, or not costume, but he's wearing a mining uniform, and this is a mining town. So just everything really synergizes well, I guess is the word for it, in this movie. Everything's just working really well. Like I said, there's just a lot more going on in this, rather than just a slasher, a typical slasher film. There's a lot more movement going on. So at the sheriff's office, the sheriff receives another box of chocolates, and he's really hesitant to open it. He's, oh my goodness, it's another one. We canceled the dance. What are we going to do, And that's whenever he opens the box of chocolates, and he sees there's a letter inside, and it's from Mabel. It says, "Would you be my Valentine?" from Mabel. And that's so sad, like whenever you see that, poor Mabel, she's the, she is the light of this. She was the light of this town, and they've taken her away, and I just, poor Mabel. I love Mabel. I wish she hadn't passed away, but her kill was so cool, and it was heart-wrenching. That's another thing too, like I said, in this, because especially with that character, you really care about her, and you think, and she's really sweet. I mean, she doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but I'm just going to be harping on poor Mabel here for the rest of the video. So anyway, after that, he hears this kind of ruckus outside, and he's like, what's going on? It's these dogs fighting and barking. And so he goes outside to see what's going on, and there is another box of chocolates, another heart-shaped box with blood just dripping down the side, and the dogs are out there licking up the blood, and they're fighting over it. And so the sheriff walks over and he picks up the card. He scares the dogs off and he picks up the card, and it says you didn't stop the party, and he's like, "What damn party? What's going on?" And so that's whenever he decides to take off and I guess do his patrols and whatnot. So back at the party, everybody's just hanging out and bullshitting, and everything's going great and everybody's having fun. There's this one guy, I think his name is Mike, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so this guy is he he just says this line. He's like, I've got the munchies, and then he goes into the kitchen where they're boiling hot dogs. They've got this big pot on the stove and they're boiling these hot dogs, and Harry comes up behind him and shoves his head in the water, and we see his boiling nasty skin kind of coming off. And so that's our first real kill at the party, I guess. So we get that hot dog water kill. That'd be a horrible way to go. Have your head dunked in hot dog water. That sounds terrible. So anyway, back inside of the party, and another thing too, because I think I forgot to write this down and mention it. I think it's cool because there's another scene where there is a heart. This guy's heart is in the hot dog water, and we see his corpse in the freezer. I think I'll bring it up if I remember while I'm talking about it, but I just wanted to put that out there because I forgot to write it down, and I'm thinking about it right now off the top of my head. So inside the party, Axel is kind of being rough with Sarah, and he's trying to get her to dance with him or kiss him or something like that. And of course, TJ starts to get kind of pissed off, and he's like, "You better lay off her there, Axel." And Axel's, who asked you anyway, man? We were just fine before you came along, before you came back screwing everything up. And so he's like, why don't you tell him, Sarah? Why don't you tell him you've decided to come back with me? You've decided to be with me instead of him. And so they get in this fight. Actually, I forgot to I needed to mention this too because my wife said this whenever whenever they're arguing, they stop. Like I said, he tells Axel, that they want to go back together and they're about to fight, and Axel won't stop, and TJ stops and he says, "That's it," and it's really funny. That line always really stood out to me, just the way he says it. And my wife even said, she's like, "That's the weirdest, like, I don't know why that was so strange, but it just sounded weird when he said that." He just stops and goes, "That's it." Like, I don't know, it's just the way he talks. It just cracked me the hell up, and she said something about it, so that definitely made it stick out to me. But that cracked me up. And then, of course, like I said, they fight. Hollis breaks them up. He grabs one of the, and Hollis is a big guy, so he grabs both of them and separates them. Axel gets pissed and he pulls away from Hollis and he opens this beer super aggressively, and then he leaves the party. He goes outside of the mine and he finds this little kind of spool thing sitting on the ground, and he is pissed and he's kicking shit and hitting his head against the wall, and he sits down and he drinks his beer, and he's cooling off. So that's when, after that we go inside to this mine cart. There was this couple that earlier at the party they decided to leave to go kind of screw around. So now we see what they're getting up to in this mine cart, and they're just kind of smooching and laying around and talking about the mine. And she's looking up, what are these, and he tells her to pull the string, and that's when the mining uniforms fall down. And she says, this is funny too, because she says, she's like, what we really need? And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got one right here." And he pulls a rubber out of his wallet. And she's like, "No, I meant a few beers." And he's like, "Oh yeah, of course, okay." And that makes me laugh too, because he's just like, "Oh, don't worry, baby, I got it under control." That's typical men, right, guys? Yeah, that's us. Anyway, so he leaves. He's like, "Okay, well, just don't go anywhere. I'm gonna go get us some beer." So he leaves. And we're left there with this girl. Sylvia is her name. I remember that much. Sylvia is there in this little area, and she's looking around at everything, and it's getting kind of spooky. And that's when she hears the showers starting. From earlier in the movie where the guys were showering, and we see Harry. We see his hand turning all the little knobs or whatever you want to call it, the spigots, because they're really not really a shower. It's not a shower head. It's not a shower like you would think of. It's like a factory type That's not even a good way to say it either, but it's just it's basically a pipe that has hot water flowing out of it, so that these guys can clean off, after they get out of the mine. So she goes in there because she hears that water running, and then Harry pops up behind her and he grabs her and he picks her up. And of course, this is in the uncut version as well. I think in the standard version it just cuts from this scene completely. I know that we don't see the aftermath, that's for sure. But he takes her and he shoves her head onto one of these pipes, that the water comes out, and then he reaches up, and of course the pipe comes out of her mouth, and he reaches up, and then he turns the spigot on, and that's when we cut to the other guy. Excuse me, the guy who went to get the beer. He's back now. I'm sorry I didn't get his name. I probably should have. I'll get better at this as I go on. He comes back in with the beer, and he hears the showers going, and he's like, all right, hell yeah, we're going to take a shower and get all sexy and naked. So like he starts undressing and stuff, and he's walking towards the shower. And that's whenever he comes up. And this is such a great scene, even in the theatrical version. I love this because we don't really, and in the uncut version, we get a better look in the uncut version, but in the theatrical version, we just see kind of the side profile, like, and it's out of focus, and but we see the mouth with the water flowing out of it from this pipe with little bits of blood. And the guy, he puts his hands on his head, and he's, oh my god, he's freaking out, and you can just tell he's in shock. And that to me is such a cool scene. I love that. That's just so well done. Like I said, even in the standard version, I like that we don't really see the full on aftermath of this kill. It's really kind of left obscure, and we just see his reaction. And I always love that because that just makes it 10 times worse. Like I said, we don't see exactly what's going on, so our mind is going a million different places. We know exactly what's happened. Like I said, we see the kill, but in the theatrical, I think this is one instance where the theatrical version of the kill was actually a little bit better than the uncut version, just because, like I said, it leaves a little bit to the imagination, and I always prefer that. The greatest fear is the fear of the unknown. So it kind of plays into that a little bit, I suppose. But anyway, so after that, we go back. Excuse me. We go back inside of the rec room. Sorry, my dogs are barking again. We go back into the rec room, and they're all talking. I guess they're getting bored, and they're like, "Hey, why don't we go down into the mine?" And they're like, "Are you ridiculous? Like it's 2,000 feet down, and it's freezing cold. Like what the hell do you want to go down in the mine for?" And then all the girls are like, "Yeah, let's go. Let's check out the mine." So Hollis is like, all right, one quick trip down, right back up. That's all we're doing. We don't want to go down into the mine. Why do you want to go? And so they go to leave. I think it's a group of 6 of them or so. So it's Hollis, Patty, which is his, and they're doing this to cheer Sarah up because, of course, TJ and Axel have been fighting over her, and they've been a big scene at this party. So Hollis, Patty, Hollis's lady, Sarah, Howard, who am I forgetting? And then there's 2 other folks. Again, I didn't get their names. I'm bad at this. But then 2 other, another couple goes down there with them. And that's when TJ tries to stop him. He runs out and he's like, Hollis, you know the rule. No women in the mine. And he's like, we're just going to go right back down and we're going to come right back up. And he kind of disregards them, keeps going. And TJ's like, well, I fucking tried. And he goes back inside. And that's when, oh yeah. Like I said, the heart in the hot dog water. I forgot to mention that. That happens when the guy goes in to get the beer. I'm sorry, I already passed it. I tried to remember. I tried, you guys, but I failed. I failed you. I'm sorry. But again, it's relevant to this scene just because around this time, that's when the guy comes back in, and he's, Sylvia's been killed. Sylvia's been killed. And one of the girls comes out of the kitchen screaming because the guy who was drowned in the hot dog water, that's when she found him in the freezer. So they're freaking out, and now they definitely know something's up. So TJ comes up, and he tells the guy, he's like, go get Newbie now, I need you to leave. They try the phone's not working, so he tells him, go get Newbie, bring him here. So the party breaks up, everybody takes off and splits, and TJ, I guess Axel has come back at this point, and TJ grabs Axel, and he tells him, Sarah's in the mine. We've got to go down into the mine and get Sarah. And so they, I guess, decide to team up and they head down into the mine. So in the mine, the entire group, which I really like the whole set of the mine. I think it's really cool, or the whole setting of just of being in this mine. I think it's really cool and it's really really creepy. And once they're in there, Hollis is just kind of showing everyone around and they're checking stuff out. And that the couple who will not be named because I didn't write their stupid names down, so I apologize. They decide to go and basically screw around in one of these little side rooms, so they go off and do that. There's some more just kind of looking around here and there, and that's when we get this really cool scene where we hear these light bulbs popping, like out of shot, and they're like, what's going on? Is that rats? And Hollis says, those aren't any rats that I know of. So that's when they discover that something is going on down there, and around this time, the sheriff is alerted, that about the party, and he takes off. He takes off to the mine, and around this, as we cut back again, TJ runs into the group in the mine, and he warns them, what's going on. He tells them, Harry Warden's here. He's trying to kill all of us. We've got to get the hell out of here. And so they're like, the other two, whatever their names were, they're gone. We've got to go find them. So the group kind of splits up. I think Howard takes off, and then Hollis takes off to go, look for this couple. And this is another really fun kill that was, I think, completely cut out of the theatrical version. So when Hollis discovers the bodies, they're laying on top of each other, and they've got this kind of this auger looking thing, some kind of giant drill bit thing impaled through their bodies. And that's a really cool effect. And Hollis is shot with a nail gun in the side of the head. And this is such a cool scene too. Again, another one of my, this movie has some amazing kills in it, or just some really just fun kills, like the kills that I really enjoy. I don't know, they're nothing again super over the top, but I think. I don't know. I just really like them. They work really well for me. So Hollis is shot with this nail gun in the temple, and we see it throws him off. It doesn't kill him right away. It messes with him, and his vision starts to go blurry, and he's all wobbly and everything. And then he takes another shot from the nail gun right to the forehead, and then he just kind of stumbles out of screen, or out of the shot, and that's whenever he. I think this would be where the actual scene would be in the theatrical version. Hollis kind of falls around the corner and kind of falls back into the group, and that's when he dies. And then, of course, they're all freaking out, and they're, oh my God, Hollis, and so they take off, and that's when Axel runs into the group. The girls. Howard is not with them. He just runs into the girls. I think Howard might have left at this point, or he's already been gone. I don't know. We don't really see Howard. He just kind of vanishes, from what I recall. He comes back later, but we don't really see, what he's been up to at this moment. Anyway, we'll get back into that. So that's when Axel finds the girls, and then they run into TJ, and they all leave to go to the exit. They're all trying to head out. And then, of course, around this time, we go back to the surface. The sheriff arrives at the mine. His backup ends up getting there. Getting to the mine, and then there's a lot of back and forth kind of in the mine, and so once we go after, I should have told this in a different order, we go back into the mine, and that is when the group, TJ, oh sorry, I had something in my eye. TJ, Axel, Patty, and Sarah, the elevator's not working, so they decide to, they say that Harry's busted the controls, they're all shredded to shit. And so that's when they decide there's like a service ladder. So they start to climb that, and they go up it, and about halfway up, Howard's corpse falls, and he's hung by this rope. And when he falls, his head pops off. Again, this is in the uncut version. His head pops off, and his body falls down, and it's so cool. Again, I really wish they hadn't cut this out because it just looks so badass. Like I said, as soon as that rope goes taut, his head pops right off, and they're all freaking out. So they go back down the ladder, and like I said, they're freaking out. They don't know what's going on, and they go to this they basically go to this other part. They're like, we can get out this way. And as they go, for a split second off screen, we hear a crash. And we go back, and of course we see this light, one of the headlamps kind of floating under the water. And that's when they're like, oh my God, Axel, that was Axel. He fell in and he's drowning. And Sarah's, telling him, we've got to go in after him. We've got to go in. And, TJ tells her there's nothing we can do. It's 60 feet deep. It's too late for Axel. And you feel kind of sketchy about this because you're kind of like, that's what he wanted to happen. You know what I mean? Like, he's not upset. He's not upset that he's dead, And so, anyway, they split. TJ gets separated from the girls. And Patty and Sarah are, again, they're just kind of wandering. They're trying to, find the exit. And that's when Harry comes out and kills Patty with a pickaxe. He nails her right in the stomach. And she has a very slow and painful death. Again, nothing over the top, but she's nailed with this pickaxe and she goes down. So that is the end of Patty. Now Sarah is alone in the mine with TJ, who he ultimately ends up finding her just crying, by herself in the mine. He's like, we've got to go, we got to get out of here. And he's got this blood, dripping down his head. And she's like, what's going on with you? And that's when we really start to feel like things are really kind of sketch with TJ. Something just doesn't seem right. Again, TJ's just come back to town, and anyway, we'll get into that. I don't want to give too much away, but like I said, things don't seem quite right with TJ. So that's kind of where we're at this point, and that's when out of nowhere Harry attacks TJ and Sarah, and they get in this mining cart, and they're going up, going up and out of the mine in the mining cart, and they're having this fight. TJ's fighting off Harry with this shovel, and they're sitting there just having this basically sword fight, as they're kind of going, and they end up falling off the cart, or TJ's knocked off the cart something like that happens, and Harry jumps off and Sarah jumps off. And as the mining cart is going up, we see the mob, of police, led by a newbie. They're coming down the mine, to go in and get these kids out, basically. So Harry chases them back down the mine, and they go into this small little kind of side ventilation shaft. And again, they continue to fight. They're going at it. Harry's knocking, he's breaking things off the wall, and he's just going crazy. And so that is when he ends up losing the pickaxe, or he drops it, or puts it down, something. And he pulls out this knife, and he goes to stab TJ. He's right over the top of him, and that's when Sarah grabs the mask and rips the mask off of Harry's face. And that's when we realize it is Axel. Of all people, it is freaking Axel doing this. And we can put two and two together now at this point. And so when that happens, TJ even says, Axel, why? We get this flashback to a little boy under the bed, in this. I think we see this murder earlier in the movie, but we get this. There's a kill, one of the supervisors who was killed, by Harry Warden in the past. That was Axel's father. So that's kind of what's going on, and again, it's explained a little bit later, towards the end, or once we get into past this part. But we can, again, like I said, put two and two together, and that's kind of what happened there. And, of course, they kind of continue, they continue to fight, and then one way or the other, I don't remember how off the top of my head, but the mine, this little room that they're in, like I said, because Harry's been, Axel, not Harry, Axel has been breaking all these supports off, and it collapses in on him. And so TJ and Sarah come out, and they tell the sheriff, they tell him, it's not Harry, and the sheriff says, I know it's not Harry because I got a call from the mental institution that told me he died 5 years ago. So he knew something was up, and you could tell that he knew something was going on, from the time that he got this news. So I really liked that. I really liked that plot twist, that the whole time you think it's just this serial killer, Harry Warden, and it's just a copycat killer. Again, Friday the 13th would do this just a few years later and get a whole bunch of shit for it. So, again, tell me why Part 5 is a bad horror movie, again, please. Because Friday the 13th Part 5 is probably the best Friday the 13th movie. And this movie, like I said, copycat killer. Anyway, I'm not going to get on that soapbox right now. We'll talk about Friday the 13th Part 5 another time for sure, because that is a damn good movie, and it deserves praise. I think it gets more praise now than it did, many, many years ago. So anyway, Sarah and TJ are safe. They're going to leave the mine, and that's when Axel's hand falls out of the rubble, and he's alive. And Sarah's, I've got to see him. I've got to see him. And so she runs back, and she's grabbing Axel's hand, and his limp hand is hanging out, and that's when we get kind of our last little jump scare. He grabs her hand, really suddenly, and that's when we go to the other side again. I don't think that we see this in the theatrical version, but Axel is cutting his hand off with the knife, or he's cutting his arm off with this knife, and it's such a grotesque scene, and we don't see it for long, but he's sitting there just sawing his arm off with this knife, and of course he separates it, and that's when we hear him from the other side, Henniger, I'll be waiting for you in hell, here I come, Harry, here I come, and he's going crazy and just doing this terrifying laugh, and going off into the mine, and that's, and we get one of the last lines of the movie. He says, Sarah, would you be my bloody Valentine? So that was such a cool way to end the movie. And then it ends on the credits rolling with just Axel's maniacal laughter, fading off into the mine, and then we get the song, The Ballad of Harry Warden, which is a good song. Definitely check it out. And that is My Bloody Valentine from 1981. Like I said, such a cool way to end that movie. I love the ending to it. It's great. This movie, like I said, is such a good time. I highly, highly recommend it. And it is just if you like 80s slasher films, this is absolutely one that you cannot skip. This is one I would say absolutely watch it. Absolutely check this one out. You will enjoy it. If you love Friday the 13th, if you love The Burning, if you love Madman, if you love things like that, absolutely watch this movie. It'll be right up your alley if you've never seen it before. What do you do? And it now is 100% the time to watch it. I watch it every year on Valentine's Day. I've already watched it twice, so I could do this review, but I'll probably watch it again. Or maybe I'll watch the remake, because like I said, I haven't watched that one in quite a while. But like I said, such a good movie. I can't recommend it enough. I wish I had just more things to say about it. I don't really know what else to say. I could just sit here and harp on how good it is all day long. We get great kills. There's a fun story going on, with the love triangle. Again, there's more movement going on with the plot than some other films. Great special effects. Great, I just lost the word I was looking for. There's great music in it. It is just 100% perfect 80s slasher. And like I said again, cannot recommend it enough. Absolutely watch this one if you're an 80s slasher fan. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Stay tuned until next time. We'll be covering something really fun. Maybe fun for me. I don't know about for you, but we'll see. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope everyone has a great night, and goodbye. And happy Valentine's Day. And goodbye.